Hello everybody, Alan Northern here giving you filmmaking tips and tricks, and today we're going to be going over the WGA strike. So what's on the line? Why did they strike? What do they hope to get out of the strike? We're going to be covering that right in this video. So on one side we have the Hollywood studios, networks, and streamers, and hundreds of other motion picture and TV producers which make or distribute content. Now they're represented by the Alliance of Motion Picture Television Producers, or AMPTP. On the other side we've got the Writers Guild of America, which represents writers in Hollywood who are members. Now in addition to the WGA, other powerful guilds and unions such as SAG-AFTRA and the DGA, Directors Guild of America, are also in support of the WGA strike. So according to Deadline, the official start of the strike was at 12:01 Pacific Time, Tuesday, May 2nd, a minute after its contract with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers expired. Now the last time the Writers Guild of America went on strike was in 2007-2008, and that strike lasted for 14 whole weeks. And last time this happened, it had a tremendous impact on what the average viewer watched. Back in 2008, since writers were in short supply, we saw a resurgence of unscripted reality television shows. Now this labor strike directly affects about 822,000 employees in the entertainment industry. Now the writers involved in the strike are responsible for the creation of shows and films that have generated over $261 billion in revenue. The shows affected by the strike include The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and The Late Show starring Jimmy Fallon. The show went dark on Tuesday, May 2nd. But the strike's impact doesn't stop there. According to WGA reports, a work stoppage in May could delay the network television season, which continues to account for 1/3 of all episodes produced, including 45 of the episodes produced by legacy media companies Disney, Paramount Global, and Comcast NBC Universal. Writers on fall network series typically begin work in May and June in preparation for series premieres in September and October. Any delay in the start of work has the potential to postpone fall season premieres and could ultimately reduce the amount of new programming produced for the 2023-2024 network season. Odds are if the strike continues, more and more consumers are going to resort to watching sketches on TikTok and more eyeballs on YouTube. Now the Writers Guild of America stated, driven in large part by the shift to streaming, writers are finding their work devalued in every part of the business. While company profits have remained high and spending on content has grown, writers are falling behind. The companies have used the transition to streaming to cut writer pay and separate writing from production, worsening working conditions from series writers at all levels. So right now the two sides at odds are so far apart in wages, it's ridiculous. In fact, the Guild wants to see pay and benefits increased by $429 million over the next 3 years. But the studio only offered $86 million in increases over the next 3 years. Yeah, that's 5 times less than what the WGA is asking for. Now the Writers Guild stated that the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers are attempting to have the gig economy of the film industry flourish, which could promote the decline of full-time screenwriters or full-time film careers. Now, I definitely encourage filmmakers and screenwriters to comment on the discussion below, but outside of Hollywood, outside of Atlanta, outside of New York City, the majority of the film industry is actually a gig economy. You get an email from your friend working on a project. Hey man, do you mind covering for me and working the second AC gig? I recommended you to one of the producers on the shoot. You go to work on the project and you patiently wait for the next one. And hopefully you've built up a list of people who are teed up for projects in your area. As long as I can remember, the entertainment industry has always been a gig business. This provides a breeding ground for fresh talent to actually break into the film industry. Otherwise, industry hopefuls wouldn't have a viable way to get these jobs. It'll just be handed to so-and-so's niece and so-and-so's daughter and so-and-so's brother and so-and-so's... You get the point. Mostly industry family members and close friends have access to these coveted positions. So no, I do not believe that the gig economy is the big issue here. The studios are business people, and right now the studios are not incentivized to give most writers the pay that they deserve. Hopefully the strike will give studio heads the incentive they need. Now I admire the WGA, SAG-AFTRA, and the DGA for taking strides in attempting to turn the film industry into less of a gig economy and more of a full-time career. But for most creatives, gig life is all we know. So I commend them for standing up to the studios, because if we're being honest, they have the money. Many members who previously made a good living are finding it much harder to do so these days. Now, there is no reason why the writers, who are the backbone of the entire entertainment industry, should be struggling to make a living. After all, the major 8 studio heads make $30 million on the low end and $300 million on the high end. These guys are making bank. Without phenomenal writers, your favorite TV shows and films would not work. So, what do we want? According to Deadline, the WGA seeks gains in compensation and residuals and curbs, aka restrictions, on mini-rooms, where groups of writers work in advance of production of television series to break stories and write scripts. The Guild has argued that producers are more than capable of compensating the writers fairly. Now, the WGA also feared that the AMPTP would attempt to heavily rely on the use of AI in creating future works. So Deadline mentioned that the WGA created a proposal to regulate the use of material produced using artificial intelligence or similar technologies, ensuring that companies can't use AI to undermine writers' working standards, including compensation, residuals, separated rights, and credits. So many of you don't know this, but I'm a senior audiovisual technician by day and filmmaker by night. And last year we went on strike for a bit over a week after negotiations failed with the higher-ups at the university where I work. And let me be the first to say, striking sucks. You know the money is somewhere in the budget, but the allocation of revenues are so skewed towards the higher-ups at the university that there simply wasn't enough for the little guys at the bottom. Sound familiar? What are your thoughts on the strike? Do you think the studios are struggling to meet ends meet, or do you think they're just grossly misallocating funds? Definitely watch my film so we can chat about it later. If you're a filmmaker, grab yourself a Clover Key. It's a camera plate screwdriver and a bottle opener. Help support the channel. Always a pleasure talking to you guys. Until next time, peace.